It seems like some familiar faces are set to fight it out to take over the Chelsea job for next season. Today, my friends, we have some massive, shocking stories to discuss involving more manager news, as well as some interesting targets we are looking to sign in the summer window. So my friends, hit that like button, share your thoughts and opinions, and to give you guys a quick heads up, I'm going to release the preview for the Spurs game tomorrow morning, so have those notification buttons on. Hope you guys enjoy, and without wasting any more time, so let's start things with a pretty interesting story coming out from Holland. And a Dutch outlet essentially interviewed Maatsen's dad, who's called Edward Maatsen, and Edward Maatsen was not too impressed with Maatsen's time with us during the start of the season. As he reveals in this interview, he mentions that at the moment Maatsen is focused on remaining with Borussia Dortmund. Now we know later tonight he is set to play against Paris Saint-Germain in the semi-finals of the Champions League. It's been an absolutely unreal end to the season for Maatsen, one of the best performing left backs in the Bundesliga, and hopefully he secures his position with the Dutch squad at this summer's Euros. But it's confirmation from his dad that his son is impressed with his time at Dortmund, and he revealed that one of the reasons as to why they decided to go to Dortmund is that they're the best club for development. He gave examples like Jude Bellingham, Erling Haaland, etc, etc. And most times when you're making it at a club like Dortmund, they set you up for the future and you tend to have a phenomenal career. Now ultimately it comes down to Dortmund exercising the release clause, and any club can sign Maatsen for 35 million euros. However, it's been confirmed yet again today that Bayern Munich see Ian Maatsen as the successor to Alphonso Davies, if of course he does leave Bayern to sign for Real Madrid. Now we can't forget that technically we still own Maatsen for a few more seasons. Before he signed for Dortmund on loan, he did have to sign a contract extension first, and there have been some rumours circulating behind the scenes suggesting that we could be open maybe to Maatsen even remaining at Dortmund for one more year on loan without even selling him this summer. That will be interesting because I think ultimately, if a new manager does come in, what if they want to work with a Maatsen? I think right now for next season, regardless of what the future holds for us, we have to see a better relationship now between the sporting directors and the manager. There has to be that unity. There has to be the priority on football and what happens on the field now. So I don't think we can take these decisions away from managers anymore. It doesn't make any sense. Still though, to continue on, Maatsen's dad did not hold back. He revealed that behind the scenes, things weren't too great at the football club, especially with this change of ownership. As he said, a lot at the club also revolves around money, which sometimes seems more important than the club's interests. We have more options besides Chelsea and Dortmund, but Dortmund has proven to be a good restart. And look which guys come from here. Bellingham, Haaland, etc, etc. And to be honest with you, is Maatsen's dad lying? And I'm going to give you one prime example of what he's saying, and that is Armando Broja. Because the argument was that, Broja needs game time. If he goes to Fulham, of course, and, reclaims his form again, then he'll be in a good position for the future. But let's keep things brutally honest. We only have one fit first team striker. It's kind of crazy that we're ending this season with only one first team striker when we had Broja. Ideally, there was really no need for him to go on loan to Fulham. The only reason behind that loan move was because we thought that if he was a success there, if he's playing week in, week out and scoring goals, the ultimate benefit would be his market value goes up in the summer, which allows us to sell him. That is not serious, because imagine if we had an additional striker. I'm not here to say that Maatsen is outscoring, but you deny these possibilities when you're prioritizing the finances and recruitment over what's happening right now. And it's kind of crazy to think that both Maatsen and Broja, two players that could have added to our season right now, have been left for absolutely nothing, with the main priorities being we want to boost their value to sell them all this summer. It doesn't make any sense really that Maatsen can leave us, become an absolute star at Dortmund. He's now playing some of his best football in his career in the Champions League currently, and he wasn't deemed good enough or wasn't given the opportunities to make it here. They even think that there's a possibility that if he doesn't stay at Dortmund, he could be going to Bayern Munich. If that happened, he's essentially guaranteeing his future with the Dutch national squad. But it repeats this formula and pattern that you see all the time. And I feel like maybe this is where Ian Maatsen's dad feels a frustration where, common produced talents aren't taken seriously enough. Is it any surprise that they always get sold all the time? They end up smashing it out the park, being absolute successes, and the players that we replace them with, they tend to be sideways moves, and most of these guys aren't even better than the players we're selling. To end things, I think we find ourselves in this position because, our recruitment strategy backfired. This whole scorched earth approach of rebuilding everything from the dust up again, even though we probably didn't even have to. We had to just refine what already existed here. It's forced a situation where the gamble has failed. And now we must safeguard ourselves financially to fall in lines with FFP and all these other league and European regulations by having to sell players, and the most profitable players to sell are the academy grads, irrespective of their ability, their form, their understanding of the club, their history, and what they produce on the field. So, you know what? Lessons have to be learned because we can't be taking L's like this anymore. So, that's the Maatsen story out of the way. And I started with this story because it segues in very nicely to the next report, and it seems like we've kind of earmarked our successor for Ian Maatsen, and big claims come from Dutch outlet 1908, and they reveal that we have open talks already to sign final left back in Quilindschy Hartman, and it's been revealed that the player has already visited London with his reps ahead of a potential move. Now, at the moment, he is suffering with a knee injury, and the mad thing is that, he's going to be coming back during the end of this calendar year. That's the end of 2024. And you think to yourself automatically, no way are we going to find ourselves in a similar position, repeating this Groundhog Day of signing players who aren't fit enough to play, with these silly expectations that they'll just come back from the injury, they'll find their fitness, they'll find their form, and they'll be successes for us. I mean, look at Lavia, look at so many players where they've broken down again. I feel like we can't be in this situation where we're taking gambles on players thinking they're going to have any benefit for us as the season goes on. In reality, in real life, it doesn't tend to work like that. So I'm going to continue with the story first, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly who Hartman is and why the club could be deciding to make a move for his particular profile. But regardless, to give you guys some more information, it's been revealed that we have extensively scouted Hartman over the recent years. I'd be surprised how long this was. Obviously, before he went to Feyenoord, he was at Excelsior. But to be honest, with big clubs, they have so many scouts. I'd imagine they thoroughly scout every league, and maybe there's a reason why Hartman kind of came up on the scouting radars. Now, of course, he's been a massive success working under Arne Slot. He is a left back, but to give you guys a bit of an understanding behind his game, think about Cucurella's second half performance against Aston Villa, and that's essentially the type of role that Hartman has been playing under Slot with Feyenoord, where, listen, he ranks very high for things like passing, shot creating actions, pass completion rates, entries in the final third. He's very strong at dealing with aerials as well too, and the main reason that's why is that for Feyenoord, he'll essentially start in their makeshift back three, and he's more of like an underlapping fullback. Maybe, listen, he's not more like an underlapping fullback, but he has been used to great success playing the underlapping fullback role. And as I said, think about Cucurella's performance against Aston Villa's second half, where essentially you're giving more support to the midfield. You're receiving in the half space areas, and from those areas in field, you have the opportunity to decide when to time your overlaps to help create the overload with the winger on your side. And that's essentially the tactical benefits behind using an underlapping fullback, because you can just create these overloading scenarios, which worked to phenomenal success second half against Villa, where we essentially nullified their wide threat in that second half. Now, you might think to yourself, I can't believe it took Pochettino this long to maybe find a useful way to get the best out of some of Cucurella's good traits. I get it, but maybe this explains why we're in the market to sign maybe an upgrade, someone that is actually equally comfortable playing as a natural left back as well as an underlapping fullback as well too. Hartman's 6'1". He's pretty explosive. I think he's got a very dangerous delivery in him as well too. He's very comfortable receiving under pressure, and essentially he's kind of like this new modern day fullback. Think about Udogi's role under Postecoglou at Spurs, where there's a lot of responsibilities in the build-up being the underlapping fullback. So it's interesting that we're thinking about these future-proof type of signings, players that can do more than maybe what we signed already. Obviously, if Hartman was to come, you're probably making a move for him in the January window. I think realistically, that's what we'd most likely do. But it gets you thinking, okay, could we even look to maybe keep our current left back options and then sign and target a left back in the January window? That's interesting, because this report seems to be very confident in the fact that they know that Hartman and his team have come to London. They have held talks. I know that even last summer beforehand, West Ham shows strong interest in trying to sign him before he decided to remain at Feyenoord. So, he's been on the radars of many big clubs, and he does have a big reputation now in Holland. So this is a pretty interesting story. How do you guys find it? How do you even think about him as a player? I'm sure you guys are seeing his comp too. Let us know in the comments below. And for the final story, we end things with probably the biggest story today. It comes courtesy of Calcio Masao's exclusive. And ever since Antonio Conte has left Spurs, he is currently still unemployed. However, this does not mean that he doesn't already have his eyes set on his future destination. And courtesy of Calcio Masao's report, they're stating that he is targeting a sensational return back to Chelsea Football Club. Now, this makes a lot of sense for many reasons. I think number one, lifestyle-wise, his family here was very settled. I think he has like a young daughter as well too that's fluent in English, had a lot of her schooling here, and there's a reason why he also took the Spurs job as well too. I think that Conte is very settled in London and obviously would love to come back to Chelsea Football Club. The report reveals that Conte has used intermediaries who have excellent relationships with figures at this football club to essentially sound out the possibility of seeing if there's a way for him to return back. They're trying to promote Conte within the club. Now, at the moment, of course, there's been no response. And why is there going to be a response? We're not going to see any responses until the end of the season. And that's where we're going to find out how Pochettino has been viewed this season under our directors. We know Pochettino will have his review very, very soon, but this is the window of opportunity for many managers now to promote themselves and make their availability aware to us, because we would then have some serious conversations and discussions. Because if a manager like Conte is making himself available, there's no way that a club like us will simply dismiss him like that and ignore him. Absolutely not. And personally, ever since that interview that came out back in February, I discussed that in a video discussing Conte's time with us, his frustrations with us not signing guys like Lukaku and Van Dijk at the time to take us to another level. He also discussed certain details like the expectations of some of the clubs that he's worked under, saying some clubs prefer entertainment whilst others have a responsibility to win. And as Conte admitted, he is someone that finds it pretty impossible to only be an entertainment manager. He's in this game to win. But you know what? I think the most revealing, interesting part from the article in February was the fact that Conte essentially revealed that he's been formulating new tactical plans and ideas catered around using a back four for next season. Now, immediately I'm thinking this. We know that right now Conte is one of the favourites for the Napoli job. We know that he's going to have tons of clubs interested in hiring him. He's probably thinking realistically, if I'm signing for any club next season, most of these clubs already have squads catered around using a back four. In that article in February, he revealed some of the inspirations from Pep Guardiola. Could he be thinking about maybe using like 4 defenders at the back, or maybe underlapping options? He did very interesting things with Bastoni at Inter Milan, where Bastoni had that license essentially to push into midfield, to make those underlapping runs alongside Ivan Perisic. So it wouldn't surprise me if Conte is thinking about doing interesting things with that back four for next season. But ultimately, it shows that he is ready to adapt and he's ready to change things up. I mean, since leaving Spurs, he's been out for a year. And normally managers take this time out of the game to really work on new possibilities, new ideas, new formulas, and come back, refresh and rejuvenate. I know he didn't necessarily have the best time at Tottenham. And I guess right now, this is where I'm going to give some thoughts and opinions. Now, listen, if I had to pick a manager, am I picking Conte? Absolutely not. But equally at the same time, that's my personal opinion. For the sake of creating a balanced video, I'm going to be thinking about the possibilities of his signing, because it's not just about my opinion all the time. Because I think ultimately it's easy for us to be quite sentimental when we look back to former managers, because we remember things like their success with us. But I think we have to think about the context of things. And the fact is, we don't have that same experience in our squad. we don't have winners in our squad. This is a young team. And I think about some of the comments that Conte made about, some of the Spurs players and his final moments with Tottenham before he obviously left. And he said something quite interesting during that season where he revealed actually the fact that we secured a top 4 finish was a miracle, because I personally predicted we may finish 10th, 9th, 8th, or even 7th based on the temperament and mentality of the players he was working with. He wasn't impressed and he didn't like the reactions. There were many examples that came out, like an example of him berating Richarlison for like 2 hours in front of the squad. Conte is an old school manager. His playing career was in peak Serie A in the 90s football. The mentality of players back then and right now are completely different. And I think to myself, could some of his methodology work with maybe a pretty fragile squad? I mean, let's keep things brutally honest and real. These guys in our team aren't winners. They're very young. And I think there's a reason why Pochettino's felt like he has to protect them and support them compared to berating them and putting them on blast. And I think Conte is the type of manager where he has such high expectations because he's been winning things throughout his career. He's worked with the very best players. He's won things throughout his career as a manager. He's not someone that's going to be taking any nonsense from a kid that thinks they know better. So I think when it comes to looking at potential managers, we have to think about who is going to be best for the current development of the squad. Listen, if we're going to target Conte and we're like, Conte, we're going to sign experienced guys for you, like 4 big experienced players with personality, like Osimhen's or, I don't know, Araujo's from Barcelona or players like this. And listen, I'd be saying completely different things right now because the context absolutely changes. But realistically, I don't think that's going to be our approach in this summer window. It seems like the directors still want to have a sense of control. And I think ultimately we have to understand that if you invested so much money into a young team that you're hoping grows and improves over time, we need a manager that can also aid in their development and help get the best out of them. Because sometimes with managers like Conte and co, yes, you're guaranteed to win something, but it comes at the expense of producing any long-term improvements in your players. I mean, we've seen this countless times, not only under Conte, but similar managers that win things for us, but it comes at the long-term expense. I just think right now, after investing over $1 billion on many players under 23 years old, they're not even anywhere near their pre-peak forms right now to be ready to successfully, and entertain that type of pressure and expectation from a manager. I'm not saying that, Nini, are you saying that we need to baby these guys? Absolutely not. But I think we have to accept that there has to be a balance between the players being able to improve their personal games, which also comes in training sessions, but ultimately it comes on how they're used tactically on the field and the responsibilities they're given. Everything works in tandem together. The game isn't just players improving themselves in training sessions and then it translates on the field. It's a bit of both. It's like a Venn diagram, right? Everything kind of has to be together. And I've always felt like Conte does his best work when he has experienced figures that he's working with. I mean, look at his times with the national team squad. Look at his times at Inter, Juventus, even with Chelsea when we had your Luiz's, Williams, Pedro's, Kante's, Matic's, Fabregas. We had players with big personality and responsibility, and we tried to cater towards a worse but different type of player for the following season. Things didn't necessarily work to plan, right? And some of the same issues that Conte had in his final season with us, they reared up again with Spurs, where they're probably close to what we are right now. A lot of interesting, exciting players, no real winners at this point in time. I mean, there could be some slight benefits. I mean, you think to yourself, hypothetically, if Conte's here next season, is he able to persuade Lukaku to come and work under him yet again? Now, again, like I'm stressing, I'm being hypothetical. I'd imagine that there's a lot more complications behind the scenes, but technically, Bowley and the new ownership have no qualms with Lukaku. And I don't know, if Conte was the manager, would he tell the club, save on spending 100 million because I can get the best out of Lukaku again. But maybe to some of you guys, just even hearing Lukaku and Conte together is starting to give you a bit of like a heart attack right now. And that's the last thing you want to see next season. So, you know, it's a very big story. The fact that Tuchel and Conte ideally would love to return back. If I had to pick between two, I'm probably picking Thomas Tuchel, to be honest with you. But even then, we have so many reports coming out. Later on this week, I'll be discussing the reports coming out again surrounding Thiago Motta. Yeah, big things are going to happen this summer, so let's wait and see what happens. But my friends, leave your thoughts and opinions. How do you potentially feel about Conte coming back for next season? Is this the right move, or should we stay well clear from it? And on that note, my friends, I'm the EFC. This is BlueLionsTV. I'll see you guys tomorrow with some more videos.